Cheers.
I'm Andrew St Pierre White. Join me as I share my passion for building four-wheel drive trucks and travelling to the remotest parts of the world. These videos are made possible by contributions from Patreons. Join the Patreon family now.
What I'm doing here is a bit of an experiment.
When the majority of 4x4 accessory equipment centres specify suspension for a vehicle, they will over-specify the springs. This is because they want to cater for the user's heaviest possible load. And in many cases, that load is well beyond the vehicle's capability to actually carry. The result is that a great many of four-wheel drives out there are oversprung and under-shocked. So I'm going from a different perspective. I'm starting at a spring that potentially is too light for the load I am going to carry.
And I want to see what the vehicle is like when it's undersprung, but where the shocks are just right. So I'm putting BP-51 shocks. I can control the rebound and compression ratios of all of them. I'm putting springs that might be too light for the final weight. And I want to see how it goes, because the last thing I want to do is have a set of springs that are too hard, and so the shock absorbers aren't doing as much work as they could. If you get the shock absorbers doing just the right amount of work, you will have the best possible ride. And that's what I'm trying to do. These springs, I might have to change them. They might be wrong, but I'm going to try anyway.
This is my local ARB fitment centre. They've helped me with a lot of my builds. The springs come from Terrain Tamer, the shock absorbers from ARB. They are, of course, the BP-51 shock absorbers. I had them fitted to my first Australian troop carrier and specify them on autograph overland builds. The front coils removed from the Land Cruiser are constant rate. The Terrain Tamer springs fitted are variable rate. And the rear springs are Terrain Tamer's Parabolic. Both these springs should give a better ride, especially when the vehicle is less heavily laden. The Parabolics will also be lighter, in this case a total of a 30 kilogram weight saving on the springs.
If I look at it, the vehicle stance hasn't really changed at all, which is good. Troop carriers don't need lifts. They just don't.
Because the standard troop carrier has ample clearance. But if you want to upgrade the suspension, you're going to have to live with a lift.
There, I measured it at home before I brought it here. I've done a measurement. I'll do a measurement later. Give it a drive and see how she feels. Warm day, aircon. All right. Now I have not set the shock absorbers. The BP-51s, one of the reasons why I like them is that you can adjust them in both compression and rebound. And right now I have not set them. I don't have time right now, I've got to get somewhere, but I'm going to be playing with the vehicle anyway and setting them up. It took me quite a bit of time to get my last troop carrier that I had with them installed to get it riding right. One of the criticisms of the BP-51s is that they're not that easy to adjust, and they're not. But they're not designed, and I don't think they're meant for you to be able to adjust them, on the fly. Every trip you just make a tweak. What they are is you can fine tune them. And once you've got it set, you leave it. The fine-tuning process is a bit painful because you've got to climb underneath. But they're not designed for, regular. You might have a setting for heavy and a setting for light. So when you head off on a trip, you climb underneath, you set your shocks, and that's it. And you write it down somewhere. and come on, lots of traffic. Now to see what the lift actually measures. 925 front axle from the ground. So the big secret is where it is now. I'll just get an impression of the suspension where it is now. 970. I can feel already there is less road being transmitted through the cab. I can feel it immediately. And the back, 980. Of course the vehicle is fairly light. The front is about as light as it'll be. So even here, with a lightweight spring, I'm getting a 60 millimeter lift at the back and a 55 millimeter lift at the front. There's nothing more to do in the front of the vehicle apart from a cover plate, steering protection plate. Nothing more to do in the front. So my front springs, my guess is going to be good. The ride is far more, you know. In Australia, the maximum permit feels much nicer. So that's interesting. I'm getting a lift actually at the back, which is slightly more than legal, because 50 mil is actually the limit in Australia. So here I've got lightest springs that I could conceive of in terms of up rating the payload of this vehicle, and it's giving me maximum lift. But that's not really hard to believe, because the standard springs and things on the set up on the troop carrier, they're not uncomfortable, but they're also not comfortable. They're designed for loads, heavy work. They're designed to last a long time. There's no refinement in the suspension setup of a troop carrier, or in fact any of this. Maybe the 76 is a little bit better, but they all could do with an upgrade with a suspension from standard, and it's very easy to get that ride better. But I'm not unhappy with that lift, but I would have been unhappy had it been more. It's not necessary, as I said before. I've seen a few products that have made the ride worse. I'm not mentioning whose products they were, unless they make it increase the payload. They ruined the ride in the process. That's completely unnecessary. The ride is much better. I think the front is close to perfect. I'll tweak it a little bit. And the back, the way it's standing, actually, I might be bang on. Because as far as I'm concerned, if it sloops a little bit at the back when under maximum load, it's okay. It's not so much if it drops a little bit at the back, it's how it performs, how it handles the what I like to call yumps, where you have those undulations in a track where boom, boom, and how does the vehicle control that? If it bottoms a lot, it's undersprung, or undershocked. There's a fine balance. But my gut feel is that front, I'm perfect. Back, very close. Anyway, more to come as I tweak and work with this new suspension system. I'm excited to have it in the car at last. I drove almost 2,000 kilometers with the old suspension, and yeah, exciting. That said though, customers, I mean, I imagine a store owner's looking at me and saying, we have to be conservative. We have to, we have the idiot factor that we must consider. And in that case, you're talking about people that will wantonly overload a vehicle. Better to be oversprung than undersprung, because undersprung, the springs will break, the shock absorbers will break. The driver could actually lose control of the vehicle. So I understand why you guys are conservative, but I've just proven that if you know what you're doing, I don't think it's necessary.
Thank you so much for watching. These videos are made possible by contributions from Patreons. Join our Patreon family now.